Thank you very much, Devang and the SSA team, and welcome you all for this seminar. This is the part of the capability building initiative which IP has been taking under the leadership of Shirish, and Shirish will be joining in few minutes' time. The topic of the seminar today is operational excellence in pharma, and there cannot be any better organization than SSA. SSA has been doing an incredible work in this space. Uh, the overall thrust of pharma operation has been the patient centricity, and the patient is the center of everything what we do. In fact, IPA Quality Forum also, which we recently completed, was focused on the patient centricity. So what this seminar will like to do is get into the areas of operational excellence, what has been applied in various companies, and what can be done to move forward the journey of operational excellence for better patient outcome, for better patient results, and keeping patient at the center of everything. Uh, what I would like to do at this particular moment, I will request Devang to introduce all the speakers for this meeting and then take forward the agenda. Over to you, Devang.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for setting the context. Joining us today, we have Mr. NC Narayanan. Fondly known as NC, is the founder chairman of the SSA Group. His personal mission when he founded SSA back in 1999 was to help industries achieve prosperity through quality, a goal that he has pursued with passion throughout his career, spanning almost 5 decades. Along with Mr. NC, we have Mr. Vijay Donde. He's currently the CEO at SSA Business Solutions and has over 24 years of industry experience, with 15 years of experience in global management consultant in the area of operational excellence. Uh, it is my pleasure to also welcome Mr. Kulbhushan Gupta. Mr. Gupta is the Global Head and Vice President, Operations Strategy and Excellence at Dr. Reddy's Laboratories. He has more than 20 years of experience where he has held various leadership positions and has successfully executed numerous strategic assignments globally. I welcome all the speakers and I hand it over to Mr. Vijay. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you once again, and I welcome all of you on this the e-conference on the operational excellence in the pharma world. What I'm going to do, I'm going to quickly give you the background about SSA. SSA founded by NC in year 99, and almost we are in the 21st, 21 year with a global footprint across 20 plus countries and having the headquarters in Mumbai. These are the various publications where NC wrote a couple of books, right from the pragmatic leadership to the Lean Six Sigma and then the Enigma of Lean, getting the thought process in terms of the statistical, the software, which is again the heart of the any operational excellence journey. And his couple of the books again coming on the pragmatic parenting, the art of parenting, the spirituality, and so on, the various topics on which he keeps giving his thought process. NC is the train the trainer from the Balance Scorecard Institute USA. And as I mentioned, these are the various platforms where he keeps sharing his wisdom, his experience, right from the operational excellence to the strategy to the spirituality, and various other domains as well. This is SSA leadership team. Ganesh Iyer, he is the MD of SSA Technology. Sashi Ayashi is the MD of SSA Asia Pacific. Naveen Narayanan, he takes care of the SSA International Operation, and myself Vijay in the capacity of the CEO Asia Pacific. These are our board members. Mr. Ajay Dagat is ex-MD of Alstom. Mr. T.N. Sitaraman is ex-Vice President from the DHL. Mr. Alok Ghosh, ex-President from the Lupin. Quick info as I started the brief background, where 21 plus years of our journey with the 24 plus countries is what we have been consulted with the 1,000 plus business model, and the saving which is over and above this $400 million US. With our presence in the couple of countries, of course, headquartered in Mumbai, and the presence in Oman, Sri Lanka, Thailand, and UAE, and of course, we started our operations in the Qatar as well. Just to give a brief about what we do, primarily we focus on the profit leadership, where we start from the boardroom level, where envisioning and strategizing as a part of the pragmatic leadership. Operational excellence, where the application of the lean manufacturing, then the COPQ optimizations as a part of the Six Sigma. People engagement, which is the again the very very crucial part, where the we support in terms of the HR system coaching and the mentoring. As far as the material optimization is concerned, where DFS and the lean accounting comes into the picture, which we support industry, coming with the various framework on that. Working capital optimizations, where the DDMRP has an assistance to give a brief about it. What are the differentiator? Because that is something which is very very crucial. We believe, how do we really get aligned with our customer? That's where the customization is something which becomes the core of our this entire journey, with the co-creating the entire content or the subject and what the customer wants, because it is irrespective of the industries, being into the pharma or being into the engineering or into the service industries and so and so. So how do we really customize getting the customer requirement at the back of our mind? Of course, it's not merely going and preaching something, but supporting them with the handholding and giving them the thought process, giving them the first-hand experience of the application and the implementation. As a part of this entire the framework, change management sits at the top, where we put ourselves into the firing line and ensuring that how the change management across a different level is taken care. And the last but not least, which is the internalization, because that is something which is crucial from the organization point of view. Although you don't want the consultant to be there forever in the organization, so that how do you support the organization to create your internal resources who can actually go and lead this entire initiatives in the perspective of the strategy. These are the various client lists. I'm not going to get into the details, but right from the stock exchange to the banking and so with the presence into the GCC, SARC, and the other part of the world. These are the global knowledge partners. One is, of course, the Demand Driven Institute from the US, primarily focusing on the working capital optimization using the DDMRP as a principle and the SNOP system. Of course, Bitwise is one of our IT solution partner. When I come to very specific to the pharma, what SSA has been doing is the almost last 12 years out of our 21 years of presence, the pharma excellence is something which we started putting our thought process and the focus, keeping the requirements coming from the various domain and various functions across the pharma industry, right from the R&D excellence to the lean into the laboratory, that is the lab excellence, and the manufacturing excellence. These are the various tools and techniques. Of course, I'm not getting into the details of it, but for R&D, it's quality by design, and then application of the NPI, that's a new product launch, the lean application into that with the DFSS. Of course, the investigation cut across, be it the R&D or manufacturing. And today, what we are going to discuss, primarily focusing on the various operation excellence tool, Lean Six Sigma is one of the methodology. These are some of our prestigious clients, right from the Reddy's to Lupin to Sun to Mankind, Alembic, AstraZeneca, Nectar, Zydus, and the list goes on. But just to give a few probably some insights, what we have been doing so far with the pharma client. To start with the pharma, Pfizer, they have got the right first time the global team, global initiatives. We were part of it in way back 2005, 2006. And then obviously, then we were supporting them into the Mumbai operation as well as one of the unit in the Singapore. Dr. Reddy's is where we are actually their consulting partners into the operation excellence drive, right from the formulation and the API, various sites at the Hyderabad, Vizag, and Baddi. Of course, API we have done this exercise in way back 2016-17, and our ongoing engagement, primarily focusing on the capacity enhancement and the yield improvements. And pharma, where the focusing on the QBD application into their R&D. Lupin, it's a combination of operational excellence as well as the DOE and the QBD. And of course, the USV, almost last 10 years, we are consulting USV with the various domain, from the quality, manufacturing, as well as the R&D part with the CAPA, lean implementation, the QBD, and so and so. Similarly, Alembic, R&D, Jubilant, a little different experience in terms of the workshop on the champions workshop for the business excellence, the journey. And the Alchem, where CAPA, Zydus, lean laboratory is what we have actually consulted there for the formulation as well as API side, and the Mankind, AstraZeneca, Janssen, and that's how it goes on. So with this brief background, I would hand over the session to NC for taking it from here onwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vijay. And at the outset, let me express my deepest gratitude for IPA for organizing this conference. I think this is the second time we are holding such a similar conference. So before I get into the topic proper, the subject of operational excellence in pharma is something we thought it is very relevant to bring about. And in my few minutes of my part of my speech, I just want to set the context why we need to talk about this. So, of course, this idea of operational excellence is in existence ever since manufacturing companies have come into existence right from 1906, when Ford Motor Company started manufacturing automobiles. But after Toyota production system came in late 60s and 70s, this has become a very hard subject in various parts of the manufacturing companies in automobile sector in India. But coming to the very specific context of Indian pharma industry, I thought I will share with you some of my thoughts in this context. So Indian pharmaceutical companies, as you see from this particular data, that it has been one of the major contributing factor, the third largest in the world, 13th largest in terms of value, which is growing on a steady rate of about 12 to 15% CAGR. Because of probably the pandemic is now bringing in a significant kind of a growth opportunity in the coming years. So having worked with the multiple type of industries in various sectors, so we find that pharma sector has got a much better future in the coming years. And suddenly there is a very positive pressure coming on these industries. So part of Government of India's Atmanirbhar, there is a huge amount of focus coming on strengthening the competencies of manufacturing companies in India, particularly in the pharma sector. And the whole world is talking about our ability to develop the vaccine within such a short time and produce it in such a large volume to the extent of even donating to our neighboring countries. So that means we are getting into the global map in a much bigger way than any other time, and pharma industries are playing a very major role in this aspect. So going forward, India is going to have a great amount of boom coming on the pharma sectors, where the increase in the volume as well as in terms of other demanding aspects of quality, etc., are going to become important. Having said that, this particular kind of a data shows that among the worldwide pharma manufacturing companies, like if you see the red one is showing the US productions are going to go down and Japan is going down. There's a marginal increase in the European companies, and China is again having a huge drop because of the trade shift that is happening. And if you look at the overall pharma growth, a significant amount of contribution is predicted to come from India and as well as the other developing countries. So essentially, that's what really the data shows. India, Brazil, and Russia are going to have a good time in terms of the growth. So having said that, we are the third largest, as I mentioned, in terms of volume. And in terms of generic manufacturing, we're the fourth largest manufacturers. And in terms of the value of the total GDP contributions coming from pharma, we are the 14th in the world. So that is where I think we are in a very formidable position. So that means it requires a different kind of approach, which we thought that we will bring in this conference. Now, looking at the major problems and opportunities, every time when there is a surge in demand, again, there is execution possibilities are being challenged, as well as the supply chains are also going through tremendous amount of stress. because of the sudden increase in the volume. So in terms of the expectations, what we want to accomplish as of now from pharma sectors is there's no compromise in quality and regulatory compliance because we are becoming a global suppliers in this sector. So increase in the throughput without any kind of a capital investment is what is needed. The kind of challenge the pharma sectors are currently facing is suddenly there is a demand going up, almost doubling. And in terms of the manufacturing capacities, if you want to set up another plant to meet the demand, it has got its own lead time. Regulatory restrictions and other things are going to much bigger time. So suddenly there is a requirement of pharma sectors to increase their throughput without any capital investments. I just want to bring few kind of facts. Kindly don't misunderstand me that I am trying to compare pharma sectors in terms of the continuous improvement as compared to the rest of the industries, because SSA has consulted nearly 1,000 business models so far in about 21 countries. So we have enough data to talk about few facts which I want to present in front of you. So one interesting aspect, which is the quality philosophy, I just want to take few minutes to explain this. If you see the quality philosophy of any organization starts from the level 1, it goes up to level 8. I'll take a minute to explain what this really means. In level 1, in probably a protected economy in India, many of the Indian companies are sell it and forget it was the philosophy. That means whatever we produce, irrespective of the defect levels, we can just sell it off. And we didn't much bother about the customer reactions. And as the economy started opening up and becoming global, this is a very general aspect of Indian industries. I'm not taking specific pharma sector, which I will come in a minute. And level 2, we moved on. The customer feedback, at least we must have. At least let us find out what happened to the customer is the second level Indian companies have started moving. And then later on, you will find between 80s and 90s, the quality control through inspection has become very predominant, because it's not merely not good enough to understand what happened to the customer. We need to prevent bad products reaching to the customer. So we need to go for inspection, by which we can prevent the bad products reaching the customer. So the concept of quality between 80 to 90, if you really see, it was predominantly with the idea of increase the inspection, thereby your quality control measures are taken. But unfortunately, the quality control measures reject the good from bad from the good product, but it doesn't improve quality. So the level 4 of the quality philosophy is control the process rather than merely do inspection. So this concept came after 90, when the Six Sigma and other topics came on board, that people wanted to see why the process is producing the defect. For example, Pfizer launched in late 90s a program called First Time Right, in which they said that all my process CPK value should be minimum 1.5. So which really means that no process should generate defects. And then they wanted to aim at CPK of 2, which is Six Sigma level. So we were part of this Pfizer's program, which was on level 4 that time. And then later on, when the process capability has been developed, the level 5 philosophy says, let's understand the process more deeply and then have a control mechanism through statistical process control. This is considered to be a level 5, which is better than the level 4. So many Indian industries, particularly pharma tier 1, in the automobile manufacturing, tier 1 companies and tier 2 companies, they went up to this level of quality and reliability. And then later on, the philosophy shifted from here. It's not merely process that matters. We also need to control the inputs that are going into the system. These concepts are all coming from automobile industries, which are having about 80 to 90% of the parts are procured from outside, and then the products are assembled only at the automobile factories. So controlling the inputs from the various vendors and their capability became very important. That's up to level 6, and level 7 actually is going into the products and processes are designed in a more efficient manner. Instead of merely stopping with the product quality at the manufacturing line, this is where QBD came from FDA. That means while you are developing the product itself, you need to ensure the products and processes are bulletproof. So level 7 is moving into the design. That means incorporating quality at the design stage. And level 8 is what actually we are experiencing during pandemic. Understanding the requirement and design the product. That means going beyond the organization to find out if pandemic is going to be order of the day, how do we prevent and maintain health and so on and so forth. So this is the progression that Indian industries have gone by level 1 to level 8 of quality philosophy. And very interestingly, just to make an observation, the current pharma industry quality system that we have studied so far, they are in the level 4, most of them. And there are few companies are in the level 7, level 8 and so on. So it's very important to notice that our lot of opportunity there in the pharma sectors to move in the quality philosophy and systems. Another interesting data observation, this is actually done by one of the leading consulting company in the US, which has taken various kind of industries and studied at what sigma level their manufacturing qualities are. And they have divided this in the y-axis. If you see, there are 4 stages. Stage 1 is the lowest matured quality systems, and the highest is the highly matured stage 4. And then they mapped against the various industries, keeping that about 2.5 sigma, 2.25 sigma is the threshold. So there are 3 informations are there in this. This is not SSA has done this. Please note that this has been done by another large, I have given the reference at the bottom. So they found that pharma sectors, automobile and aerospace, they have compared at what quality level their first time right is happening. Very strangely, the pharma sectors are falling in the almost threshold level, stage 2 level of maturity, and automobile are falling in the level 4, and aerospace, which is the mainly the aircraft manufacturing, is at the higher level of reliability. This probably last time when I presented this, pharma industries came up with the view that probably this is not right. Of course, this is not our view, but please try to figure out that there is a huge scope for pharma sectors to move in the operational excellence to go into the quality philosophy levels I spoke about. So that is where the opportunities are. One may argue the product that is reaching the customer is at 6 sigma level, meaning that if I pop up my blood pressure tablet today, it has to have the active ingredient. So there's no question of few tablets are not having the active ingredient, which will be very dangerous for the health of the consumer. So it is what I thought. I will leave this thought with you. And moving forward, this was done by McKinsey some time back, sharing some of the developed industries, matured industries with pharma. And this also may be giving you some kind of a big impact for you to consider. The annual productivity improvement was compared with the automobile industry and pharma industry. Annual productivity improvement really means is what are the continuous improvement efforts are taken in manufacturing. Now Dr. Reddy's lab kind of industries are doing great jobs, but an average Indian pharma companies are only 2% improvement they do in an annual basis. Whereas in automobile industry, they do about 10% productivity improvement by challenging the processes, eliminating the non-value added activity, and the like, improving the machine downtimes and so on and so forth. Coming to the production lead time in number of days, in a pharma industry, it's average 150 days. whereas automobile industries have brought about a huge amount of just-in-time philosophy, by which it is only 4 days. So a raw material getting converted into finished goods is only 4 days. So you may like to reflect on this, but I'm not going to take up any further discussions on this, but these are all published information available in the various sources. Coming to the finished goods inventory held in a typical pharma company is about 75 days inventory average, whereas an automobile industries are holding only 16 days of finished goods inventory. That means they are 4 times more efficient in terms of inventory management as compared to pharma sectors. So having said that, the labor value at a time, that means the average time if the operator is working for 8-hour shift, how many hours or how many minutes is actually adding value in manufacturing was compared between pharma and automobile. In an automobile industry, about 65% of the time, the automobile are being built by the operators. But whereas in the pharma company, maybe due to partially the level of automation, it's only 20% of the time there is value-added activities are performed by a typical operator. You may like to keep this at the back of your mind just to see how much opportunity exists in pharma sectors in order to look into this subject of operational excellence in detail. So finally, a couple of thoughts I want to leave with you that once we compared typical simple product which 1 or 2 components with an aircraft manufacturing which has got about 12 million components. So we made a comparison between the number of components. For example, this blue dotted line is showing how many number of components are increasing in some complex products. And this green line is showing the manufacturing quality sigma level. That is 6 sigma is almost 0 defect, 7 sigma is virtually the process doesn't generate any defect at all. Very surprisingly, the products like consumer products, fountain pen, domestic appliances, which are all having a least number of components, their quality levels are pathetic. That means their quality systems are in the quality philosophy I presented there in the very early stages of quality philosophy. But whereas the most complex products like automobile, 4-wheelers or commercial aircrafts, which are having 6 million active parts, they are manufactured at 7 sigma level, which is almost more than 0 defect manufacturing capability. So what it is showing is merely the number of components and complexity increasing does not matter, that quality has to be poor. It is more of the simpler products also can have higher level of defects is what this is showing. So in a way that means the quality and operational excellence systems are far from these kind of developed industries. That's what the message shows. And finally, to summarize our observation, particularly in pharma sectors, lack of commitment from the leadership for operational excellence. Of course, it looks like it's a little bit harsh in the sense the pharma sector generally enjoy a higher level of profitability. With the result, even there is an inefficiency in the system, but still it is easily can be passed on to the consumer. So with the result, the leadership team has not very actively considered this operational excellence in their company, except some few leaders who are very proactive have taken up. And a limited appreciation of the need, as I mentioned that a few years back, we were consulting on the corrective and preventive actions, and we were spending time on the R&D excellence and other areas. But quite strangely, we could not really penetrate into the operational excellence area where the manufacturing efficiency can be improved. And the implementation skills and continuous improvement culture is a little behind as compared to the other industries in pharma. And mere focus on tools, some companies have taken up to learn Six Sigma and other tools, but they are all more on the tool specific kind of interest rather than really shaking the base and rocking the boat and looking into a radical breakthrough improvements in their manufacturing efficiency. And there is a disconnect between operational excellence initiative and organizational strategy. In the boardroom, the efficiency improvement has become a main agenda in very few companies in India. Some of the top ranking leadership companies have started, but rest of the organizations, it is not a major subject of interest still in the boardrooms. Finally, the change management part, still at the leadership level, if the change is not felt necessary, obviously the second line and tactical level people are not going to really take this very seriously. So that is what I wanted to summarize in my part of the speech, and that what I wanted to convey the message is, one is pharma industries have got a huge amount of opportunity, and suddenly the demand is going up, so they must be able to produce more from the same capital investments. And if they want to utilize this, the only solution available is the improving their efficiency and increasing their throughput from the same investments, for which operational excellence is more or less mandatory. And many Indian pharma companies have not considered this as one of their strategic intent. And the leadership team now, it is realizing it is more important to bring in this kind of breakthrough improvements in their organization. And wherever the companies have adopted this philosophy, have been immensely benefited in terms of improving their profitability and competitiveness. With that, I hand over the session back to the facilitator and take this forward. If there are any questions, I can take it at the end of the program. Thank you very much for giving me this great opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jain. Thank you, Vijay and NC. This is a great opportunity for me to be here and presenting what is Dr. Reddy is doing in terms of operational excellence. I think very aptly put that pharma industry has a huge amount of opportunity in terms of driving operational excellence and making sure that they come up to par with the rest of the industry with respect to what they can achieve in terms of productivity, competitive edge. So I'll just share my screen and start the presentation. Give me a moment. So Dr. Reddy started the operational excellence journey quite some time back, and they even had L.A. Goldratt, who started the theory of constraints movement within India, and Dr. Reddy's were one of the first ones to pick it up. Now, over the years, what really happened was, though they started Lean Six Sigma and they started TOC as well, the gains were realized. At the same time, the sustainability was something which was lacking. So about 3 years back, we actually looked back and introspected to find out what will actually make operational excellence the DNA, the growth engine for the organization. And therefore, if you see, this is Dr. Reddy's today. So it is the themes, the 3 themes for Dr. Reddy's today are leadership in chosen spaces and patient-centric product innovation. And the third is operational excellence and continuous improvement. So it's been given that kind of importance now, that these are the 3 spaces in which every function in the organization, every business would work around. At the same time, there are these leadership behaviors which have been inculcated within the organization to provide this leadership. We understood that if we have to succeed, there is no way we can succeed if the leaders do not follow this path. And therefore, growth mindset, cost leadership, deep excellence, discipline and rigor in execution, speed and agility in decision making. These are some of the values which we are wanting our leaders, our managers to inculcate and drive this growth engine. Let me give you, so I'm summarizing the last 3 years journey that I've been a part of in this organization. So we did something different. This is not something different for you all. Probably it was different for Dr. Reddy's to begin with. So we went to the external forums. We went to our customers. We went to the business heads. We went to the front end people and understood what are the biggest areas for focus for us. And we understood that we wanted to, there was an ask from us, from the global manufacturing operations, to ensure a long-term supply. And then there has to be agility. That means the response time that we have to any tenders or any new demand that comes in, that response time is very high. So our lead times need to be looked at. We needed to become more lean. So that was another ask. At the same time, there is an SKU proliferation, as you know. We supply to different countries, and even the same site, the same product gets applied to different countries in different packing formats with different SFG requirements. So how do we handle such proliferation of SKUs? How do we handle such complexity? There was a need in order to make our system more lean and agile from that perspective. New product launch. So the OTIF, on time and full performance for the new product, was another big ask from the business. Cost competitive. We understood that if we were 10% or 11% in a product in terms of the market share, and if you wanted to move ahead, just creating more capacity within will not solve the purpose. I can only share so much of fixed cost across the increased volume. The cost had to reduce. That means the cost of the raw materials had to go down. The cost of conversion had to go down. And if we were going to increase the capacity, we were going to increase the capacity without investment. So those were key asks that were put forth to us. And new manufacturing capabilities, getting into new domains was very, very important for us. Especially, for example, injectables, pre-filled syringes. These were some of the capabilities that were new to us at that point in time, and we were building them. Then local manufacturing in key markets, insulate markets from supply risk, and de-risk brands and assets. So these were the key asks for the business, and specifically for the global manufacturing operations. We identified that if we work on these three focus areas, we have a winner strategy on hand. One is supply assurance at any cost, and then cost leadership, and third is culture and capability. Obviously, the third one is the most important one. And we wanted to achieve 2x improvement in our return over capital employed, and EBITDA by 3x improvement. While the difference that we made into the operation excellence execution, or Dr. Reddy's execution system, so to say, was that we did not have a system by way of which the strategy that was created to win in the market, in the market space, that strategy could be translated to every function in the organization. So we started a huge movement of strategy deployment process, which is what SDP stands for. And we deployed Hoshin Kanri X Matrix right from the organization to the different business units, from business units to the sites, from sites to functions, and functions to circles. So that's a whole cascading of how the goal deployment is going to happen, not only cascading what's, but also cascading how's at every step. And then these are the backbone for breakthrough improvements. We understood very clearly that just by doing incremental or even continuous improvements, we are not going to get ahead of the race. We needed breakthrough improvement strategies that needed a very, very sharp focus on project management and execution. So the SDP movement really helped us put that in place. I will share with you how do we actually go about doing SDP. It's not just formation of X Matrix with a bunch of people. It's a very, very very structured process that we go through. I'll just show you in the next slide about it. And obviously, when the big breakthrough projects have been executed, they all should become part of LDM, Lean Dairy Management. How are we going to manage our continuous improvement on a daily basis, our KPIs and KAIs, not just KPIs. So KAIs is also extremely important, key action indicators. Are we actually measuring only the lead indicators, so only the lag indicators, or also the lead indicators? So those become an essential part of LDM. We have 3 LDMs in progress now. LDM 3 happens at the site heads level. LDM 2 happens at the section heads level, or the block level, and LDM 1 happens at the operators level, where the operators themselves form circles and they do their daily management. It's a very profound way to drive complete accountability and ownership with the frontline people, that is the operating community. Providing the foundation is the leadership behaviors I alluded to at the beginning of my presentation. There are tools and systems. So we have adopted Lean, Six Sigma, TPM, and various digital tools in order to help us drive excellence at a much faster pace. So I was talking about diagnostics, which is the backbone for our strategy deployment process. What do we do? We make themes. So these are what you see here are different themes. These themes start working about 3 months before the strategy session happens. So typically by the month of October, we sit down together and say, how much do we want to grow by? So and the growth targets are not just 2%, 3%. The growth targets are always in double digits. So we look at the past, and what we've done is a very comprehensive benchmarking through McKinsey, robust benchmarking. So we understand where we are with respect to the top quartile or the top decile in the marketplace. We have set ourselves a target that we'll become top decile by 2024. That means we'll be among the top 10% companies in the world when it comes to any of these metrics, whether it is volume productivity, quality productivity, people productivity, in terms of our ability to manage energy, water, and waste, or in terms of our cost factors, which is attributed by yield, cost of poor execution, solvent recovery, and other things. Also, part of this diagnostics is the make versus buy decision. So there has been so much money that we've spent with tollers and with the third-party manufacturers. How can we become cost competitive inside and bring all those products inside? Because what we've been able to do with this methodology of operational excellence is create 2x volume with the same assets. So in the last 3 years, we have created a capacity for ourselves that even we want to produce 28 billion tablets in a year, we can actually produce 28 billion units without having to invest even on a single machine. So once the diagnostics is over, this is the overall structure. As I said, benchmarking is the backbone. The strategy deployment process, which happens here, that provides the direction to the company in terms of changing the course of the organization. And then the execution framework or the execution engine kicks in, which is running on the backbone of these three circles or these three focus areas. And obviously the governance is an extremely important part of it. So when it comes to strategy, I already indicated that we do it with the help of Hoshin Kanri, from the BUs to the site, to the function, and to the circles. On the execution framework, there are 3 key elements of focus for us: people, process, culture, and capability. So let's talk about the process first, of course. So Succeed is an initiative which helps us stay compliant always. So it's all about all-time audit readiness. So there are about 8 sections inside the framework of Succeed, which talk about how we want to make sure that our compliance is uptight, is always there. We are not doing compliance for preparing ourselves for the audits alone, but there is inherent process capability and people capability that is built. So whether it comes to investigations, the time that we have, the turnaround time for the investigations, the accuracy of the investigations, the appropriateness and adequacy of our CAPAs, corrective and preventive actions, or it is about how the people actually believe in quality. So we do culture surveys, we do pulse surveys in Succeed in order to understand whether people believe that there is quality being demonstrated, exhibited by their fellow people also or not, by their fellow employees, by their peers, by their superiors as well or not. So these 8 elements have helped us improve our scores. So there is a metric. There is all these Succeed elements are driven by not quality function. They are driven by the site head. They are driven by the operations team, because we believe people who produce the products have to be responsible for the quality. So therefore, Succeed is all about producing quality at source. Lean Six Sigma is one of the ways that we are doing. We do about 400 to 500 improvement projects now every year. These are the improvement projects which are an outcome of the diagnostics, which I showed you in the previous slide. Those 400 to 500 projects are being driven through Lean Six Sigma framework. SSA has been a very key contributor in terms of training our people, in terms of reviewing these projects and mentoring these projects to completion. Digital Lighthouse is another big initiative. So we deploy a lot of machine learning algorithms in order to drive process robustness. So yield improvement, wherever we have COPQ issues in terms of some of the CQAs having problems, we deploy machine learning algorithms in order to understand very quickly which CPPs or which CMAs need to be improved upon in order to improve our CQAs. So, and then we have autonomous way of working through TPM. This is a very, very big initiative. 50% of the managers and leaders training calendar today is occupied by the autonomous way of working. So we have conceived our own approach, which has been inspired from TPM. Plus, there are multiple other initiatives where we have created a 3-step process of our own, by way of which we are creating excellence in the chosen areas. Just to give you an example, there was a product that we used to produce which used to have dissolution errors. And we would not know when suddenly those batches would run into dissolution errors, and we'll have to run into a huge cost of poor quality, huge, running into crores of rupees. And though the process engineering tried, everyone tried, we could not solve the problem. We applied this 3-step process, which actually gets into the root of the problem. It looks at every machine component which could be responsible. It looks at every process parameter. It looks at every material attribute, every man-related issues, all the 4M conditions, and then tries to diagnose. The FMEA that we did was appreciated by the OEM themselves, who came from abroad, when we called them to review what we were trying to do. After that initiative, 6 months down the line, the project was completed in 2019 middle. Till now, there are 0 breakdowns, 0 minor stoppages, 0 quality incidents in that product. So this is just an example of one area. We call them manager model area. So manager model area would mean one of the managers actually chooses that area, and he says that I'll create world-class setup here, excellence here, so that there is 0 failure. So these are the philosophies, methodologies which are helping us drive excellence. On the culture and capability side, we have KPIs and key behavioral indicators also. So there is a scorecard for every section. These scorecards roll up to every unit operation rolls up to sections roll up to blocks roll up to the site, and the sites roll up to the entire global manufacturing operations. These scorecards are looked at on a monthly basis. We have a specific way to measure and drive leadership involvement. As I said, every manager model area is owned by a leader or a manager, with a key objective of driving 0 failure and 100% employee engagement. There are 80% of the preventive maintenance activities which were done by the engineering team are today being done by the operators as part of this initiative. So as people is concerned, without which nothing can be possible in terms of process excellence or in terms of culture building. So here there is a learning journey which has been created for people. And in that learning journey, even the progression for the operators is linked to the skill building. So they have a learning path of about 10 months. In this 10 months journey, they have to acquire those skills. They have to demonstrate those skills by doing 5 Kaizens at least per person per year, and doing 5 OPLs. OPL is 1 point lessons, which they can share with the community, and doing 5, creating their autonomous maintenance standards and adhering to them from time to time. The OEE, which is overall equipment effectiveness, which is a very key metric for every unit operation, we take a target of improvement of at least 30 to 50% every year. And that's how we have created 2x capacity from the same assets. In fact, we have closed down 2 plants, and yet we are increasing our output. So this is how the whole overall structure is driving excellence. And that's all I had for today. I can dwell deeper into what we do here. For example, in digital and analytics, we are even driving something which we call as a nerve center. So we have connected we went about a very methodical approach of driving autonomous workplace, the manager model area concept through TPM. So we know now which process parameters, which component need what kind of condition monitoring. And therefore, for those components, we put IoTs in place. And all this is, all the data is being connected to a data lake. From the data lake, it is connected to different analytic systems. So I can today download a data of 100 batches in the past and do a random forest algorithm and understand, how can I improve my cycle time? How can I improve one of the CPK values of my CQAs? Or how can I improve yield for that matter? So digital is playing an extremely important role combined with Lean Six Sigma approach and the TPM approach. So these have become our methodology, which have become the backbone for our continued success. Thank you so much for patient hearing, and I would love to take questions whenever the time permits. Thank you.
So thank you, Kulbhushan. Thanks a lot for this wonderful insights. What I will do, I'll take the session from here on. I'll share my screen. I think that's wonderful. The thought process what NC has shared in terms of what are the opportunities the pharma world has got. Because when we are going to compare ourselves within our own industries, that's not good enough. It is important for us to compare and create the benchmark, like the way Kulbhushan has, the precisely has mentioned that the POBOS benchmarking using the McKinsey as a source. So you are trying to basically compare within your domain with your industries and the stalwarts, whatever they have been doing globally, and keeping that as one of the targets. Second part, you are trying to compare yourself with not only with the pharma but outside the pharma, because many times it is important for us to see what are the other industries are doing, and the experience of the automobile and the aviation industries and those which they have spent the decades and the centuries in perfecting this entire science of operational excellence. And that is where NC was giving the comparison, and the thought process behind that comparison was to show what is that opportunity is there with us, and we should move ahead with that opportunity. Couple of the thought process, I'm just trying to connect the dots in this entire conversation. Since NC has mentioned one of the important point are the barriers in terms of this leadership, I would like to probably go back to that particular slide. These are the various barriers in terms of the commitment from the leadership, and then the limited appreciation for the need of the operational excellence, or for that matter, we need to do something different. And then the skill set, what is needed for the implementation. The reason why I'm bringing this slide now, this is where I just want to connect the thought process. What Kulbhushan was trying to give his perspective, how the Dr. Reddy's are doing. And this is where when we say that some industry leaders are doing something different, what are all those things are needed. So NC, when he was actually giving this entire the thought process in terms of the barriers for the pharma world, in terms of the leadership commitment, the skill set, and the focus on the tools and the change management, and how do you connect the dot between the operational OPEX initiative as well as the organizational strategy. And very beautifully, Kulbhushan actually explained how the Dr. Reddy's, they went about this entire strategy part. Wonderful. Now, what I'm going to do, of course, I'm going to give again the broad level, the thought process and the perspective of the operational excellence, and some of the case studies, not getting into the details, but what are the benefits, what are the advantage when you are going to apply this kind of the methodology, rather using the structured approach. So if I have to summarize the conversation, if I have to summarize the thought process before getting into the operational excellence, why operational excellence, it has been covered very well. But just to connect the few dots, what are the external and the internal factors which are influencing us in taking this entire the strategy with a different the thought process, or with a different mindset. Because if you look at the external realities in terms of the pharma I'm talking about, the increasing the market complexity, and we know that be it the US market or the European market, or even for that matter the other part of the world as well, that is something which is keeping us on the way we are thinking in terms of our boardroom level discussions. Increased complexity and the cost of product development, again that is something which is impacting, especially when we are into the generic. This is impacting as far as our profitability is concerned. The cost of the R&D and the cost of commercialization also has got a major contribution to this. The cost control becomes very important, and one of the another aspects, the frequency and the intensity of the regulatory observations. So that's coming from the FDA, be it the local or the international. That is something which is very important for us to really keep at the back of our mind. And that is where, when we see these realities, and that's where the operational excellence becomes this becomes the heart and the important drive for me when we are going to work into from the strategy point of view. What are the internal opportunities? Again, I'm just connecting the or taking the clue from what Kulbhushan was trying to explain in terms of the process robustness, because this is something which is very important. Because many times what happens when we try to see the throughput or the yield from the same product, I get a batch to batch variation within that. Yeah. Now, why does it happen? That is something which I need to really look into it. My recalls, rejects, and the retesting. That is again another the major pain, as a pharma which we are going through. The company strategy and the operations and the testing, again, that's where NC was explaining how the company strategy and the, of course, what we are going to execute on the floor, which is very, very crucial. And that is where Kulbhushan was explaining the Dr. Reddy's strategy of connecting this particular dot between this boardroom level discussion and the execution level strategies. And how do we become the proactive rather than having the reactive approach? So really looking at this internal and external opportunities as well as realities, that's where the operational excellence becomes the one of the important driver to the business strategies. One thought process when we talk about the OPEX, not necessarily it has to be a cost driven approach, because we being into the pharma, what is important, improving the effectiveness sitting at the top. Yeah. Along with my efficiency, obviously. But being a pharma, obviously, we cannot take a chance in case of my product specification, my product behavior, the way I produce a product, the way I deliver the product, the way I develop the product. That effectiveness is very important. When I look at that, then of course, then my efficiency will follow once I start putting the focus on the effectiveness, because both these metrics are very, very important for me. And as far as my cost savings is seen as an outcome. So as long as I am focusing on my effectiveness and the efficiency, I think my bottom line is something which will be taken care. Now, what OPEX is trying to do in terms of what from my current to desired state, one of the most important is the paradigm shift. It's important for us to really understand the manufacturing science, connecting that with the product and the process with the risk assessment. I think this is something which we have been doing, because I'm not saying that we don't, but we have to enhance this thought process. Just one of the example on when I was listening to Kulbhushan, when he said that we have done the FMEA for our equipment, even how the OEM also is appreciating, yeah, the way these equipments are being seen by the end users, yeah. So that means whatever I do, be it from the equipment point of view, process point of view, product point of view, how do I keep the risk assessment at the back of my mind? So I take that as a proactive approach. That's paradigm shift is important. Cultural aspect, needless to say, is how do you the first of all cultivate the new thinking and communicate that thinking down the line, yeah, as a part of the organization strategy rather than the ritual is very important as a part of the design state. Of course, the performance. And that's where, when Kulbhushan was explaining about a KPI and the KBIs, very, very interesting. Of course, we keep focusing on the KPIs, but the KBIs are something which is important when you are going to see the benchmark indicators and seeing ourselves, where do we stand on those? From the process point of view, like your CPK indices are some of the metrics which we'll have to keep at the back of our mind. And understanding our own process, many times, of course, since we have been consulting this into the various domain, various industries. Sometimes what happened, we say that I have spent about 10 years and 20 years in my process. But looking at the process from the different lens, okay, every time you start seeing the process from the different lens, there is a different learning. And that is where the operational excellence as an approach or as an scientific the mechanism which is going to help you to see your process from the different lens every time you touch base, every time you experience that process. So this is where the expectation from the operational excellence in terms of my paradigm shift, the cultural part and the performance and the process. Very fundamental philosophy. What it says that you create the passion for the root cause. Now this root cause analysis is something, the word which we are using every now and then. I think we are using this word more than chanting the God's name. That is what I have seen. But it is easier said than done. What happens? Generally, since we are into the domain, we have the inherent the habit, not as an individual but as a human being. We try and jump into the conclusion and the solution without understanding where the things are going wrong. Now the question is that we don't we understand this? Answer is yes, but are we spending enough time, yeah, for the people to really understand where the things are going wrong, and to avoid this repetitive occurrences of those, and to ensure that we give the right first time the performance of the process. That's where as the OpEx leader, we have a very crucial critical role to play in terms of mentoring and guiding the teams on the various tools and techniques and the methodology. At least when I'm interacting with the people from the various industries, it is not that they are not inclined to do the improvement. They are very much keen. But many times what happens, they probably, there is a lack of the approach, or a lack of the skill building, or the lack of the methodology, which they are not aware. And that is the reason why probably either they're taking more time to do that, or it's not getting with the structured approach. What OpEx is, this is something which is a fundamental. Now, having said this, so how do we really address this? There is an opportunity, there is a strategic drive, yeah. And now when I'm getting down, on the ground, when I'm going to execute this, taking the strategies from the boardroom level, how do I address this? What is important for the OpEx? It is important to have the integrated approach, right from the product development to my regulatory compliance. Obviously, I have got my entire SCM and the manufacturing, the logistic and the procurement. Everybody is a part of it. It is important for us to really understand how do we create the integrated approach in the true sense, because each one of these has got interdependencies. So it is important, and especially now, the post-COVID, as NC was reflecting, there is going to be a surge in the demand. But when there is a demand, it is that we cannot afford in compromising either on the quality or my compliance and everything. So it is important for us to connect the dot across. While connecting the dot, what is important, let's understand what are the important KPIs I have to keep at the back of our mind. We have our business KPIs in terms of my top line, my bottom line, and then the EBITDA and those my various margins. Those are definitely business KPIs and financial KPIs, which is important. But the moment I come to the various functions, it is important for me to understand which are the KPIs which at least I should know. Because if I don't have this KPI, it is very difficult for me to even think about driving this operational excellence as the initiatives. Just to cite a few, I'm not going to read everything, but if I take an example of the R&D, where the product development part takes care, now time to market. That's where, in our pharma, the language we say first to file, okay, and the cost of development becomes very important. When it comes to the manufacturing, the QC, the capacity and my yield. Again, one of the example, what Kulbhushan has given is how do I increase the capacity from my existing facility, okay, without any further capex. That is something which is important, and that's where you will have the multiple KPIs which are going to help you to enhance that. My FTR, first time right, my SPA, the moment I'm seeing from the laboratory point of view, yeah, that is sample per analyst. That is where you are trying to enhance the analyst efficiency, which we have covered in our past the e-conference as a part of the lean laboratory, and the OE, needless to say that. So it is important for us to really understand what are those KPIs. Let me walk you through a little bit more in detail on this. Now, why I'm saying this, because unless and until we don't really evolve our strategy around this, it becomes very difficult for me from where to start. What we have done as an SSO, keeping this the industry need for each of this the important part of the business value stream or value chain. For R&D, when I was explaining that shortening the lead time, improving the product robustness, because this is something which is crucial when I'm going to put the product into the commercial. If that is not there, that is where I keep saying that a lot of variation comes during the commercial batches of the manufacturing, applying the QBD framework. Improving the resource productivity of R&D. How do I create the agile R&D system? Again, is very important. When it comes to the supply chain, obviously it becomes a working capital is the crucial here. Now connecting the dot, what kind of the KPIs I must have in each of these functions? Maintaining the optimal level of my RM and FG inventory, again, that is important. Now, if you recalled what NC was explaining in terms of the FG inventory, number of days of inventory in a pharma vis-a-vis the other part of the industry. I'm not saying this is going to happen overnight, but we have to keep this thought at the back of our mind and how I can basically work on this, because my working capital is getting blocked over there. Manufacturing, that's where we are talking about the process yield, the process capacity, yeah, and ensuring that reducing the process variation and other quality problems. Laboratory part, that's where when I say that SPA, so that is where the sample to analysis ratio, that's where you are trying to improve the efficiency, reduction in the lab error. Now this is something which is one of the, again, the crucial part, the out of trend and out of specification. Now this is something that has become like a nightmare for us in the pharma, but this is something which we cannot run away from. That this is the bread and butter. This is the heart of our the pharma functions. OPEX is going to help us, yeah, in gaining a lot of control on this. Then the testing lead time and the resource utilization. Again, the resource utilization, when we say be it into the manufacturing operations or be it into the laboratory, again, the benchmark, what we were discussing some time back, like a 20% of 20 to 30% resource effective utilization in the pharma vis-a-vis 60 to 65% effective utilization in the automobile. Do have that opportunity? Let me focus on those. And then coming to the regulatory excellence, which primarily we are talking about the enhancing the effectiveness in the event investigation. Again, these are the words which are not new to us, but what is important, how do we really enhance the effectiveness, is a part of the operational excellence alone. Yeah. And then how do you create this investigation culture across the organizations? So with this, the background, yeah, what I will do, I would quickly walk you through one case study in the formulation and one case study into the API. Having said that, this is absolutely a 40,000 feet overview. I'm not getting into the deep diving into it, but the idea here is that when you're going to use this, the methodological approach, the structured approach, a scientific approach, how this is going to help you to enhance or improve the KPIs what you are targeting without any major capex. So I'll give a background of this particular the project. There was a product, of course, it's the capsule which has got the blend and the tablet, yeah, as a product, which has got higher market demand, but obviously because of the lower yield than the budgeted, obviously I'm not able to meet those demand. So here, when we have collected the data, which was at the time of the project when we did this, the yield was about 95.7%. As against the budgeted yield of 97%. So budgeted yield 97%, that means your the product, your process has a capability to reach that particular yield. And when I'm saying that even a gap of 1.5%, as a pharma guys, you will appreciate how big that gap is all about. And opportunity loss was very, very significant. When I say the opportunity, it is in terms of not meeting the market demand or the requirements. So typical manufacturing process, right from the dispensing to the granulation, blending, compression, coating, you're filling the packing and so on. What we did the deep diving. We have collected the data, and we could see that in this entire the manufacturing process, the filling process was the major bottleneck in terms of the yield loss. So what we did, again, you will find that every area has got certain the improved opportunities, but no point in improving every process unless until we don't really tackle the bottleneck one. Because if I'm going to improve the process outside the bottleneck, I'm not going to gain this advantage unless and until I'm going to tackle the bottleneck one. So here we could see that the yield loss was more into the filling, and the filling was taken into the next stage of our basically the project as a drill down exercise. Another part, when you are going to talk about the specific metric, now here the yield improvement was a metric. It is important for every individual working in the project, right from the management, to bring the clarity. That's what in the Six Sigma language you call as an operational definition. Yeah, how do you, the establish or calculate the yield? That understanding has to be very, very clear with everyone, so that even post improvement you do the apple to apple comparison that was established here. And this is where when I said that almost 95.7% was the yield, the data was collected over the period of time, and you could see that there is a wide variation in terms of this yield. It was as high as 97%, as low as 94%, and so on. Then, of course, I'm not getting into this tool discussion, but these are some of the important tools which we'll be using as a part of understanding this process. Now, when you are applying this kind of the tools, the very rational behind is you try and understand the 40,000 feet of the process. Now here you can see that this is a filling process. I'm trying to understand what are the broad level process steps are there, and what are the inputs which are getting into this in the broad level processes, and what are the outputs coming out of each stage of my process. Now, why this is important? Because when you are trying to capture this information, this is going to help you when you are going to do your subsequent analysis, why we are losing this much of yield, and at the same time, which are the stakeholders which are getting associated with this. Now, again, the operational excellence, when we say the scientific approach, at this stage itself, you are actually indirectly involving the concerned stakeholders. You know that whom to approach at what point of time, rather than getting surprises when you are getting deep diving into the projects. Then obviously you get into the detailed root cause analysis by using the various tools and technique. I'm not getting into the details of it. And then establish the relationship, what was the problem, and then the root cause and the some of the recommendations. Of course, again, these are at very high level. There are many such recommendations are there. So at the filling station, why the loss was there? Primarily, you can see that the higher residual, is nothing but the blend which was getting retained more there. Was one of the reason why they were not able to really get the higher yield at the filling stations. So you can see that some of the high level, the root causes in terms of the insufficient level of powder to make this slug, and then the tablet thickness variation. This was another problem what they have experienced. So that means some of the reasons are there with my upstream process steps, which I need to take into the consideration while doing this entire analysis. And most important, when you do this, you are actually getting into the true sense of the cross-functional team, not merely on the paper, but you have to get engaged all the concerned stakeholders. What the team has done, the couple of the recommendations that what they have implemented. One of such was the hopper which was earlier without a dome, and with a dome they could see that the amount of blend which was remaining in the hopper, which has been reduced from 1 kg to 0.3 kg. Now the question is that why we could not realize this, but this is where when you actually do the entire Gemba walk, do the entire cross-functional conversation, the brainstorming, and the database analysis, this is where people are going to really realize this kind of some of the solutions. Obviously, then a couple of more solutions, which at the compression stage, usage of the single tip as against a multi-tip and so on. And you could see that statistically you are validating, how the things has improved. If you can see that the amount of the blend which was remaining there earlier, and due to which the yield loss as one of the reason, you could see that the blend after implementing this couple of the solution, which has dramatically that has been reduced. And this is the end outcome. Obviously, this entire project, which we are doing it almost for 4.5 months over the period of time with the entire team involvement. Now, from the 95.69%, it has reached to the 97.8%, although target was 97.5%. Now, this is the power of the operational excellence. So this is the power of the having the right strategy, having the right project for us to really work towards the direction of getting more, spending less as a part using this entire approach. Another case study, which is in terms of the capacity enhancement in the one of the API manufacturing plant. Again, the background is the key product as far as the site is concerned. Demand is higher than the capacity, and if I really improve that capacity, yeah, even by a couple of my more batches, yeah, per shift, I have got a huge financial benefits in terms of, that's how the financial calculation was done, in tune of almost close to 5 crores is an opportunity. So when we were deliberating with the site team, now you are trying to basically understand the business voices. Of course, these are some of the drill down exercise using the tools. The capacity constraint was the concern raised by the leadership team. Then you try and ask the question. Now, if I have to really work on the capacity, that means what I need the higher production from the existing facility. Now there are different ways and means I can increase this, increase the productivity or production rather from the existing by improving the yield, by working on the quality. And one of the other thought process that if I really improve on the batch charging frequency, reduce the time of batch charging frequency, this itself can give us the capacity enhancement. So the focus was given on the reducing the batch charging frequency. The data was collected for the multiple batches for the certain period of the timeline. And what we could see, it was about 24%. Sorry, 24 hour was the batch charging frequency on an average, which was seen. The target was kept. Is it possible for us to really reduce from the 24 hours to 18 hours? Yeah, based on the, of course, the base quartile performance. That was the target which kept. And that is how the entire journey started. Then what we did, we have gone into the entire manufacturing, the cycle or the process, and identifying the bottleneck processes right from the reactors, multiple levels of reactor to sifter to micronizers and so on. And we identified which are the bottleneck process, because that is something which was stopping us from getting that the increased capacity. Then what we did, we could get into the details. Further breakup has been done on the time component. So you could see that these are the two major equipments where if I really, let me use the pane. Now these are some of the particular component or equipments. Now these are the time breakup. You can see that these are my process times. Yeah. And these are the other parts, which is either my idle time or my other losses and so and so. Now, if I compare this entire the various equipments into the manufacturing cycle, now I could see that this is the equipment which has got the bottleneck. Unless until I don't work on this, yeah, I will not be able to really increase the ultimate productions. So we have taken these two equipments for the detailed study, yeah, and we have done kind of the shadowing exercise. We have done the entire time and motion study. We could identify the various opportunities of my loading, unloading, everything. We went into the detail. Almost 3.5 months of the rigorous exercise we have done on the floor, and identifying where those opportunities are there. With all this, the analysis and the recommendation and the implementation, you could see that, yeah, this was my before, where on an average about 24 hours what I was taking. And this is during the entire exercise, and post implementation of those various recommendations. Yeah, we could take the couple of I think good number of batches, and from 24 hours it has come down to almost 20 hours. Although our target was about 18 hours. Although we haven't implemented all those recommendations till the time we were there into the project, but I got to know that this number has come almost 18.5 hours. And this has actually resulted in terms of the financial saving, which has been validated for the period of 6 months, which was almost 2.3 crores. Needless to say, because you are increasing your throughput without any kind of the capex. So this is something as far as what I thought I'll just share with you in terms of the few case studies. Although, as I mentioned, the entire exercise which has been done almost for a couple of months, and you will appreciate the confidentiality in terms of the product and the processes. But the sum and substance, when you are actually into the operational excellence as an approach and methodology, And what NC was reflecting on those the numbers between the automobile and the other industries and the pharma industries. This is the power of having the right strategy, having the right the approach, focusing on the process, focusing on the culture, focusing on the people part, and then taking the right tools and technique is something which is important. I thought I'll share with you. So I'm done with my presentation. So now I think we can get into the question and answer.
So thank you, Vijay sir. Thank you for sharing your presentation. Now I see, of course, there are people who are very, happy with the session so far, and they have been, putting their feelings on the chat, and quite encouraging. There's one question which has come from Mr. Sandeep Shelar, so I'll just read it out. This is regarding your case study on yield improvement. He's saying how low yield is responsible to cater demand. It will impact on higher RMC and margin will be low. So that is his question. So
yeah.
So basically, how low yield is responsible to cater demand. I think if that part can be answered.
Of course, I'll respond. NC, you want to reflect on this? Is Kulbhushan there?
I think he's left.
Okay. Yeah. See, I completely agree with your thought process, but the idea here, when I'm saying that as far as my yield is concerned, obviously this is going to have an impact in terms of my output is concerned. Now, if I'm able to improve my even the output, okay, because I'm cutting down my losses. Yeah, as you rightly said, my RMC as well as this one. Now, if you see that operational definition, the operational definition was, now they wanted to, their batch size was about 9 lakhs was the capsule. Okay. Now, if my yield is low, because of which I'm not able to really give the required output in terms of this number of batches or number of capsules, and that is where it was having impact in terms of my meeting the customer demand to that extent. And here we are talking about number of such a batches. It is not the one batch we are talking about, but it will have definitely impact on my RMC. Definitely, it will have impact on the consumption part, which will definitely improve. It will improve my bottom line, but at the same time, it will help to cater the additional requirement as well. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah, 1 second. All right. So maybe, of course, while we can give a minute or two to people to type their question. But in the meantime, I would like to ask a question which is very commonly asked. I think Mr. NC can answer is where, if any company, of course, everybody have an idea about operational excellence, and I'm sure through these sessions they can get more insight. But how does one company, irrespective of their size, can go about, their journey, begin their journey with operational excellence in baby step? So I would request Mr. NC to answer. Mr. Devang, NC is not able to unmute. Can you help him so that he can answer this question?
Devang probably is on. I can unmute.
Yeah. Yes, I think. Yeah, I think you're unmute.
Yes, Sapras. Sorry, can you just repeat the question, because
Yes.
I was just more
Sure,
keen
sure.
on.
So like always, a lot of companies, they ask this question that, operation excellence is a very big term, and it's not an end, it's a journey. So how does one company, here, of course, in the case of pharma company, irrespective of their size, product, market, how they can begin their journey? What is the first step or baby step they can take towards, in this journey? So that from you would be great help.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think very relevant, because the pharma sectors, if you probably look at, they belong to 3 categories, if I am not mistaken. One is the large ones, which are essentially very less in number. The middle ones, which are fairly large in terms of turnover as compared to other industries, which are the so-called large MSMEs. And there may be smaller units which are feeder kind of industries. So irrespective of whatever may be their size of operations, operational excellence is very relevant to them. And the large industries have taken a strategic decision, as Mr. Kulbhushan has presented in his presentations, which is very clear that Dr. Reddy's lab taken a major steps on improvising everything in one go. So probably the middle-sized organizations, or some of them may not even have a very strategic intent like that, but nevertheless they may like to start in a small way. So what is the best way many organizations have done is that they identify some of the profit leakage areas or the chronic quality problems, rejections and rework, those kind of issues, or specific downtime of the bottleneck machines which are affecting their throughput. So it is always possible middle up or bottom up time kind of operational excellence initiatives. So instead of taking up into a massive company-wide scale, you can always start in a small way and then focus on certain specific areas of improvement where there may be a demand to supply gap may be there, but you can't increase the capacity overnight. At the same time, you don't want to invest any capital equipment there. In those type of areas, where any improvement in the throughput will give you a substantial profitability improvement. So those kind of opportunities can be taken up in a diagnostic study and then you can start. That's what I would recommend.
Should I? Yeah, Mr. Vijay, would you like to add?
Yeah, and see, in fact, there is a one question which is reflecting in the chat box. Is it the right comparison for pharma with automobile, as a pharma is having the huge product mix as automobile is not having? So I think it's a very important question, and I think you are the best to answer this.
Yeah, I think always every industry feel that they are unique. Pharma is not an exception. But irrespective of whether the complexities or SKUs, anything of that kind, in fact, as compared to automobile manufacturing, where there are about 45,000 active parts are there, and they have to be sourced from hundreds and thousands of suppliers, scattered around many complex kind of a network. So in fact, automobile manufacturing is far more complex than any other, although cannot be compared with an aircraft which has got about 6-7 million active components and zero defect demand in everything that you produce. Pharma industries have got, as we have seen, it's only about 7 or 8 process steps. Yeah, in the formulation, typically you will have standard processes of granulation and compacting and coating, etc. So they are fairly manageable in terms of operational excellence as compared to the tremendous amount of complexity automobile and other companies have. So the number of, answer the specific question, the number of SKUs and variety has got nothing to do with operational excellence. Yeah, we have done this runner repeater stranger analysis where 20% of your SKUs are contributing to 80% of your income, and they go through the same machines again. So there are many simplest way. I want to just give you a ballpark figure of 20% of the throughput improvement can be done without any capital investments. So that is what is the biggest opportunity that exists. Don't try to compare industries. There is no comparison, and the pharma industries are heavily regulated. So the regulatory requirements, we are not talking about it. In fact, because of the heavy regulation, the pharma industries have become reactive. As Kulbhushan also pointed out, it is audit ready. That means you don't need to prepare for an audit, right? There is nothing called audit ready, you know. If the aircraft is going to take off, it is supposed to land. So there is no takeoff ready, you know. So these industries have been more reactive because of the heavy regulatory pressures. So if the regulator asks, we will do it. If he wants CAPA, we will do it. Why do we need to do CAPA for regulators? Because that is needed for us, basically, right? So that way, operational excellence, now QBD was brought about FDA once again. So they insisted, how do you validate your developments in the molecular development, etc. So we are more reactive all these years. So what is needed is to bring that cultural change that we should become proactive. And at the Nirvana level, now having 52 years of industry experience, according to me, there is no difference between any manufacturing industry, right? There is an input, there is a process, and there is an output.
Correct.
So that is what the Nirvana I see after 70 years of human existence. I hope partially I have answered, Vijay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just to add, I know I'm just taking the clue because when we are actually consulting the pharma, almost for last 10 to 12 years. This typical the challenge we keep saying that we have got so many SKUs, but as NC has mentioned, one of the important point, which many organizations they do strategically, but many of them they do fail. In fact, this runner repeater stranger, this is something which is very, very crucial because that is going to help you to really create your strategy for the operational excellence using the various product family. Because when I'm going to talk about the product family is not only for manufacturing, but product family applicable even for the testing as well. Because when we used to interact with the people, they used to say that, boss, there are 250 such SKUs are there. And how do I really manage? Where do I apply this OPEX? You are applying the OPEX to the process. This is something which is very, very important. Now, for example, I have got a compression process. I'm trying to see that how the compression process will become like a 1.6 or 2 CPK level. Now let any product goes through that. That is immutable for me. There could be a slight variation coming from here and there, but that is where you are trying to focus on the process rather than the product and the SKU level.
Dr. Dhande, can I ask the question?
Yeah, please, sir.
I think generally I am from the pharma industry. People ask whenever operation excellence is taught, they say it will compromise the quality, it will compromise the compliance, and that's the general principle. So can you throw more light, because I know that it is not compromising on quality, or can you show some of the case studies where actually it has improved the compliance, it has improved the quality when you use the operation excellence principles into the process?
Yeah, in fact, I'll give the same example. Like when we are talking about the various yield improvement project or the capacity enhancement or OE improvement.
Correct.
Now, like in the recently, we are supporting them on the improving the OE of the equipment. Now, for example, I have got my compression machine, I have got my packaging machine, and I want to improve the OE. Now, what does that OE means, right? We are trying to improve the various component of your equipment so that how you can enhance the machine's availability right first time, all the time, meeting the specification, not having the quality issues, and avoiding the breakdowns. Okay. Now, when Kulbhushan was explaining that today the thought process of my maintaining the equipment, now the entire culture has changed from the engineering to the operator. The moment earlier we used to talk about the machine failure or machine maintenance, my only engineering team has to come and they are supposed to basically attend. But the moment you are bringing this cultural change and making the operators to know that what is important from their perspective, and believe me, the moment operators have started getting involved, okay, now there is a terminology in the pharma, people says that abnormality identification. If the equipment is running, what are the abnormalities are there? Now, identifying the abnormality, is it a rocket science? Answer is no. But here, the mindset or the cultural shift happens. Earlier, people used to think that abnormality has to be identified by engineering. But now we are talking about the abnormality has to be identified by the operators. Now, I'm connecting this dot with the compliance part or the regulatory. Now, today, what is happening? The operators has become more aware. Now, they know that if I don't handle this particular equipment, this particular part of this, or be it change parts, or be it the way I'm feeding the product, the way I'm working on this machine, I'm going to get questions because I'm accountable. So it is important for me to really ensure that I'm keeping the entire specification and the entire condition and health of my equipment much better. Now, what is happening? By doing so, I'm avoiding so many failures, which are the potential failures. Now, and the moment those potential failures are not there, obviously, I'm taking care of my product quality indirectly. And as Kulbhushan was giving an example, zero breakdown on the particular product what they have taken. Zero breakdown, zero failure. Now, the moment this is not there, there's no question that I have to get bogged down by the compliance and this one. And one of the important, the mindset what I've seen in the pharma is that the moment I'm going to work on the OPEX, I'm going to compromise on the compliance, but absolutely no. Absolutely no. The OPEX starts with the compliance, the adherence itself.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Dandu.
Yeah.
There's one question from Mr. Prashant Gutse. He's asking, when we talk about operation excellence in manufacturing, does it include implementation of OPEX in all other sections, that is QC, engineering, etc., which are directly serving one manufacturing, rightly said, focus on debottlenecking? So this is something that Mr. Kulbhushan had touched upon. So can any of you answer? I mean,
NC, can I attempt?
Yeah, Dr. Dandu, you can answer that.
Yeah. So see, the moment you are saying the operational excellence doesn't mean only the manufacturing excellence.
Yeah.
Now, operational excellence cut across the entire business value chain. And that's the reason why, if you remember, I was showing you the entire value stream of the pharma, the business itself. It starts with my R&D. It goes to my supply chain. It's the procurement, my manufacturing, my quality, my outbound logistics. Everything gets into this. And the moment I'm going to say that improving this, now many times what happened, now there are certain site operations are there. In that site operations, it is a combination of my manufacturing, my then IPQA, which is again in process quality assurance. Then I have got my QC laboratory. Now, all these are going to complement each other while improving this. Having said this, what is important if you are the beginner of this entire operational excellence, it is important for us to focus on one specific pain to start with. Because operational excellence is something which you are trying to create the culture. You are trying to build the confidence with the people. Once you create some kind of success stories, yeah, that is all people will start believing. Adding the support function is not a big deal at all. Because the moment I'm going to work on the quality function, I will have a different metric to handle. The moment I'm going to talk about the manufacturing, I will have a different metric to handle. And likewise is what I need to take care.
Yeah.
NC?
yeah.
Yeah, the term operation has been misunderstood by different industries in a different way. What do you mean by operation? The moment the sales order is released, the material planning, procurement, and then incoming controls. Subsequently, the material is issued to the line and then it converted into a finished goods and it goes to the warehouse from where it gets dispatched. See, the operation starts from the time the sales order is issued to manufacturing and the material leaves the factory. That is what the meaning of the word operation. Now, in this whole operation scope, when you say operational excellence means, how are we reducing the lead time from the time the order is released and the material is getting dispatched? So that means the quality as well as the quantity that we are able to produce first time right is what is the scope of operational excellence. Now, in this process, it is not only the people who are really converting the raw material into finished goods are involved. There is a huge amount of time is spent by the quality control and quality assurance, right? There's a large amount of time is also wasted or used by the engineering function, which is maintaining the equipments and everything. So when you say that you are improving operational excellence, you are not excluding anybody who's really contributing to the throughput of the product that we are manufacturing. That is the point that operational excellence covers. In fact, our study in the laboratories in the various pharma industries shows that the quality control aspects are not in sync with the timing aspects of the lead time of the company's ability to manufacture. Because the laboratory works as one silo and the manufacturing works as another silo. That means the throughput of the laboratory decides the throughput of manufacturing. So that means in operational excellence, we are not laying our hands on what the regulator has specified. Like for example, if any changeover has to go through certain cleaning process, those things will remain the same. So if the product has to be tested and approved in a particular way, those areas are never touched in operational excellence. Many people misunderstand that you will go and change those things. And then, then the regulator will come and ask you, why did you do that? So most of these organizations have achieved a phenomenal improvement in their efficiency without touching any of the regulatory requirements. So please note this point because it's very important.
Thank you.
So of course, there's one very common question of this. Of course, this time it's asked by Mr. Sheila once again, but we get these questions a lot. This is basically, he's asking how much time does it take for a pharma company to reach Six Sigma level capability? So this is a very common question. I think it's a good question. So request anyone can answer.
Okay.
I think whole pharma world is struggling to achieve that Six Sigma. Moving by one Sigma is an issue.
Yeah.
So I think Six Sigma will take a lot of time. We are saying recently in the IPA forum, this question was asked to the CEO forum. And CEOs before 3 years back have said that we will achieve Six Sigma in next 3 years. Now we have moved just a 0.5 Sigma probably. So they have understood now it will take time, but if there are consistent efforts, one can achieve the next Sigma level. And we can't achieve Six Sigma, but we can go step by step, achieve next Sigma. That's important. Doctor, you can say more.
I think I would request NC to reflect on this. Very interesting.
See, first of all, in my quality philosophy slide, I have already spoken about what is the maturity of our quality systems. I don't know, for want of time, I had to rush. That probably one full day I can speak about it. What is important here is, how are we achieving quality? Okay. Quality can be achieved by two different ways. One is the machine never produces defective parts. That means that the whole process itself is capable of producing zero defects. That means even if the operator is going to sleep, the machine will continue to produce first time right 100% of them. And for your kind information, in automobile, many of the developed countries, this is the way the process capability has been developed. But it took almost 50 years for them to achieve that. So what is important here is, are we achieving quality by quality control, or are we achieving by process control? And most of the pharma industries, this is a fact, people start fighting with me. How can you say this? There's nothing against these industries. Pharma sectors are being highly regulatory based. Most of our quality achievements are coming by inspection.
Absolutely.
I want to convey this message very strongly in these forums, because unless otherwise the leadership accepts this fact, we will continue to, continue with our old paradigm and we may not do anything about it. So it's very highly inspection based. That means that only by checking everything 100% of the time, we will ensure quality. That is why Pfizer, which is one of the leading pharma company, took up this first time right concept by process control. And worldwide, at least I have traveled to 20 countries, and then we studied their process, and then we were trying to bring the cultural change that you shift from inspection to process control. That means the process capability. That's where Six Sigma is coming from. So my experience is, without revealing any specific industry secrecy, Indian pharma industries have never crossed the 3 Sigma level. So most of the very highly achieving companies in India have never crossed 3 Sigma level. And if at all, if they are supplying to 6 Sigma level, but a heavy amount of inspection controls, they are able to supply it. That means every tablet somebody is popping up, as I mentioned, is supposed to have assay value that is meeting the specification. That means I cannot have a diabetic tablet which it doesn't have the active ingredient in it. So that means you need to produce it that way. Now, how do you produce that? Whether you are having excessive inspection and regulatory controls, and because of which you are producing it, that obviously cost money. But what is important here is moving away from the inspection to the process control and process capability is yet to come in the pharma industries, except the top 5 of the world-class companies. Rest of them have not even mentally accepted that they need to move away from the inspection-based system to the process capability systems. So to answer your question, don't shout at me because you are not more than 3 sigma level. That's what the fact is. In terms of first time right quality is concerned. Vijay, you are having more hands-on experience. So they are achieving 6 sigma by inspection.
No, I agree. I would say you have explained very nicely, and it's adequate enough to get the understanding.
Because the quality forum, they always fight with me and see why are you saying this. We are not that level of maturity in quality. So that's what it is. Yeah.
So I think towards the end of the session, we can take one last question. It's mentioned, and then I'll request Mr. Shirish to give the closing remarks. One question from Mr. Arun Kumar. He's asking, this is particular from the slide which Mr. Vijay shared. He's asking, in yield improvement slide, there was a requirement of 2.4 sigma by the limit in that slide. So that's what he has mentioned.
In fact, I would like to know where the 2.4 sigma in which slide.
Okay, anything that you can say related to that?
That question, it's like there's 2.4 sigma. There is nothing that we are talking about the sigma level over there. We are talking about primarily focusing on that yield improvement from the current level of 96 point something to 97.
Okay.
So we are not restricting per se for that sigma level. The primary target was to improve the business metric.
Okay, all right. All right,
Yeah.
So I request everyone who, we're closing the session. If you have any queries, you can always write to Devang. They will forward it to SSA, or please fill up the feedback form and we can respond to your queries. You can share your queries on that. Over to you, Mr. Shirish.
Thank you. It is always a pleasure to have a session with the SSA. I think probably it is the third time we are having this session, right? Different topics.
Yeah.
Yes,
time. And it is always interesting the way in which you take the sessions and with the case studies and actually what has been done on the Gemma. That's very important. Probably talking big thing is one thing, but actually doing it on the shop floor is the second thing, I think, which is very important. And probably you are doing this. Thank you, NC, Dr. Vijay, Mr. Kulbhushan, for a very interesting session. I think a lot of questions also were thrown. There could have been more questions also, but I think time is short. So I think I'll request everybody to write the questions if there are any, and we can forward it to these people for getting the answer. Thank you. Let us wait till the next seminar. Thank you very much and good night.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone in IPA, particularly Shiriji, for organizing a wonderful conference, and look forward to see all of you in many more occasions.
Must thank Sarfaraj and Devang also. They have done a wonderful job. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.